Good evening. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. The pandemonium in Punjab continues and it has a larger message for the state of the Congress. Let's bring up a big political story on the broadcast this evening. It is now official. What was widely expected has happened. Captain Amarinder Singh has declared that he will be exiting Congress and forming his own party. Amarinder has been in Delhi where he's held a slew of meetings, including with Amit Shah and the National Security Advisor. In the meantime, the Congress is attempting a last-minute patch-up with Navjot Singh Sidhu as the Chief Minister meets with the rebellious former State Congress chief. But as we said, there are larger ramifications here. There is rebellion brewing within the Congress, and in retaliation, congressmen gathered at the house of Kapil Sibal and threw tomatoes and stones, we are told, at his house, a hooliganism that has been condemned by his colleagues. In this open warfare, the real story is the eroding authority of the Gandhi family. Is the family reading the writing on the wall? This is near open mutiny, at least within a section of the Congress. That is the focus of our conversation this evening. Let us bring up our panel this evening, panel of experts and protagonists, and let's introduce them one by one. We have from the Trinamool Congress, Dr. Riju Dutta. Very interestingly, the Trinamool's Abhishek Banerjee has lashed out at the Congress, saying that the Congress needs to get its act together and stop and end armchair politics. So really, this is a story that goes well beyond Congress versus BJP. We're also joined by Shubhrastha, who's a political analyst with her own YouTube channel called the Churn. Welcome, Shubhrastha, to the program. We're also joined by Rahul Verma, who's a political analyst and a psephologist and is with the Center for Policy Research. Welcome. Dr. Sanjaya Baru, who's been at the receiving end in his past life at the wrath of the Gandhis when he was media advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh, the author of The Accidental Prime Minister, among many other books. Welcome, Dr. Baru. And finally, we're joined by Tehseen Poonawalla, the forever friend of the Congress party, the forever loyalist, never gives up hope, no matter how bad it gets, and has had a bet with me that the Congress is going to form the government in Punjab. So let me start with you, Tehseen. The story today for us goes well beyond Punjab. We want to actually look at the national picture, what's happening in other states, what's happening with other parties like the Trinamool and the Aam Aadmi Party. Do you approve of what happened first outside the residence of Kapil Sibal? Many Congress supporters describe the free fall in Punjab as an example of inner party democracy. If the inner party democracy is genuine, do you approve of what happened outside the house of Mr. Sibal?
Before that, I just want your viewers to know, not just have my bet with you that Congress will make a government in Punjab. My bet with you is Congress is crossing 18 Punjab, and I'm sticking by it in a house of 117. Let that be on record. Now to come to what happened outside Kapil Sibalji's house. Absolutely disapprove the tweets of Manish Tiwari, where he said that people were standing on the car got damaged. No violence is acceptable. Cannot accept violence or any sort of intimidation. That's not acceptable. But protesting is a democratic right of the workers, and I think that should be respected. To Sibal Saab, and to everybody else, there's a word of advice. You must have faith in the Gandhi leadership, the leadership of the Gandhi family. Trust them. Congress is the only party where democracy is absolutely open. Please write to them in private. Please seek the appointment in private. Please do not speak to the media. Protesting is correct. I don't accept the visuals that you're showing standing on the car. That should not happen. That is unacceptable. That I agree with you.
So you think that the response of the Congress workers gathering outside his house was okay as long as they were peaceful?
Absolutely. Not just okay. They should, if somebody feels that their leaders and our leaders in that sense, when I say, I'm saying for the Congress leaders, they feel that their leaders are being insulted or there's a wrong perception being created about their leaders. They have an absolute right to protest. They must protest. They must register their protest as long as it's within the walls of the law. You must not cross that boundary. That is important. But make sure that the protest is registered absolutely categorically.
And how do you see the exit of Captain Amarinder Singh from the Congress party?
I told you on your earlier shows that Captain, I've told you this and it's come correct. He's welcome to go. I have an advice for Captain Saab. While I salute him and I have a lot of respect for Captain Saab. He's been a loyal soldier of the Congress. My advice to Ajit Doval Saab is send him to Uttarakhand, where China has been intruding into India and breaking bridges, and that is, of course, never discussed. That's also a border state. You can send him there because quite clearly the Indian media does not want to discuss Uttar Pradesh. Send him to the border state of Gujarat where drugs are being caught. But Punjab is doing brilliantly under a Dalit chief minister. And I repeat what I started your show with. Congress will cross 80 in Punjab in a house of 117. It will cross 80. Please note this.
I just want to reiterate that the Dalit chief minister was not appointed as a homage to Dalit aspirations. He was the fourth choice, not the first, the second, or the third, the fourth choice.
May I counter you on that? That's not true. That's WhatsApp.
Ambika Soni said no. One minute, let me count the names. Ambika Soni said no. Ambika Soni said no. Sunil Jakhar was proposed, was turned down because he was not a Sikh. Then you can have Sukhwinder Singh Rajwa. So those are the three, and then comes Mr. Channi. So. Yes.
May I make a clarification? The General Secretary in charge, Harish Rawat, who knows a thing or two, and I know by now with you having me on your show, you do know that I know a thing or two because it's coming true. This was a choice 3 days ago. Sometimes in poker, in cards, in politics, you don't reveal your cards up front. You keep your cards behind. You keep your cards behind so that you can make your move. That's how politics works. Let's understand and give us something.
You're saying this was actually a game of bluff. The Congress was deliberately misleading everybody and then they took out their ace.
I am saying this was a game of chess. I've made a move. My move is checkmated everybody. Now, those who want to go to Punjab or Uttarakhand are free to go to Punjab or Uttarakhand. If they want to come to the Congress, they're free to be and serve in the Congress because they're serving Punjab in India.
Okay, may every party have a enthusiastic supporter and loyalist like you. And the never say die spirit has to be admired. I think how deflated so many congressmen and women are today, Tehseen, it is admirable. But I want to step back from the nitty-gritty of Punjab, right? We can keep debating it, but there's something more that's emerging here, and that's what we're here to talk about. Dr. Baru, we have seen the natural sort of tension within the Congress party when you were advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh in UPA1, and that tension in some ways has continued. What is the place of the Gandhi family within the Congress structure? This is a party without a president, and yet it keeps using the phrase high command. Now, the difference is there was a time when nobody would have dared to talk about the Gandhis in the way they're being challenged now, and it would take special skill that both the incumbent, which is Amarinder Singh, and the interloper, which is Navjot Singh Sidhu, are in rebellion. I mean, it takes a spectacular set of skills to basically make both sides angry. How do you see the pattern and the larger message that is emerging here?
Well, first of all, Barkha, I am not very familiar with Punjab politics, so I can't comment on whatever has happened in Punjab and whatever is likely to happen in Punjab. I have some understanding of the Congress party. Over the last 50 years, I was quite closely following its ups and downs ever since the Indian National Congress became the Indira Congress. And I think people forget now, but after 1969, the party itself called itself the Indira Congress. It used to be referred to as Congress I or Congress R. And that's the Congress we are dealing with. And in that Congress, naturally, the family, Indira Gandhi's family, has an important role. So I don't think one can wish that away. I think Narasimha Rao, in his fictionalized autobiography called The Insider, had this phrase, his party has become a proprietorship. That is what happened. In 69, the Indian National Congress became the Indira Congress. Anyway, that's the Congress we are dealing with. And that is a Congress in which the Nehru-Gandhi family has a central role. So there's no denying that role at all. So whoever is a member of that party should understand that is their central role in that party and accept it. And if you're not willing to accept it, I guess you have to leave. That is what Sharad Pawar did. That is what Mamata Banerjee did. That is what Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy did. A lot of people left the party because they were not willing to accept the basic structure. And probably that's what Mr. Amarinder Singh now has done. So there have been a lot of exits from the Congress party by people who are not willing to accept the founding reality of the party at some point in their political career. So that is a big picture. And I think it's important to keep the big picture in mind. Now, going forward, I think the real challenge for the Congress is to ask itself the question, is it in a position in its current form to take on the Bharatiya Janata Party and under Narendra Modi's leadership in 2024 or not? If it is, and they feel confident that they actually are in a position to come to power in 2024, all power to them. One cannot deny any political party the ambition and the aspiration to come to power. But my judgment is that they are not in that position. And therefore, they need to work with other political parties. They need to work with Sharad Pawar, which they are at the moment in Maharashtra. They are in a coalition government there. They need to work with Jagan in Andhra Pradesh, which they are not. They need to work with Mamata Banerjee in Bengal, which, implicitly they are. But I think, those are the kind of questions, challenges for the Congress. Now, if that argument is accepted, I know some people will not accept this argument, but if that basic argument of mine is accepted, then the challenge for the Congress is to keep as many people as possible on its side, rather than to actually lose them. See, let me make one last point as an opening remark, which is that in 1969, the strategic decision that Indira Gandhi took was that she had to break the party in order to strengthen the party. And she proved right. I mean, by breaking the Congress in 69 and ejecting an old guard, she actually strengthened the Congress. I think, in my judgment, the strategic challenge for the Congress today is not to break the Congress to become strong, but to reunite the Congress.
That's very interesting. So it's almost the opposite of what happened with Indira. That's in the Indira era. Tehseen, very briefly before I go to Riju of the Trinamool Congress, do you agree with Dr. Baru or do you agree with Rahul Gandhi when he basically says, "Jisko jana hai jaye"?
With Rahul Gandhi. Because at the end of the day, I am not against working with Pawar Saab. We are working with Pawar Saab. But please understand the history, which you don't know micro history. In 2008, it is Mr. Pawar's NCP that formed something called the Pune pattern. I come from Pune the first time, where BJP, NCP and Shiv Sena were an alliance to keep the Congress out. So for me, in the Rajya Sabha, I can tell you of MPs from Majid Menon, who was not present during the CA-NRC vote. So you see, there is only one family in this country that has consistently been against the RSS. That family is never compromised. With due respect to Mrs. Mamata Banerjee, whom I have a lot of respect, she's also been in alliance partners with the BJP. And at some point, she's been okay with Mr. Modi. The only family that's not gone with the RSS is the Gandhi family. And that's why we vote for the Gandhi family. Apart from the fact that they've sacrificed their life for this country. So our vote, I've said it repeatedly on your show, it's for the Gandhi family.
Okay. Just hold that thought, because if the stated aim and that sort of cachet of the Gandhis is that they take on the RSS and the BJP, they also have to have the skill set to defeat them, to take them on electorally. And at the moment, as Dr. Baru pointed out, that is certainly a diminishing skill. Now, I want to go to Riju, Dr. Riju Dutta of the Trinamool Congress. What's happened very interestingly is, as Punjab is imploding, the Trinamool Congress and Mamta's own nephew, Abhishek Banerjee, says, hey, if you can't do this, we will. End your armchair politics. Dr. Riju, how should we read those comments by Abhishek?
Barkha ji, I'll come straight to the point. There has been a big overhaul within our party, and we have appointed a new National General Secretary as Abhishek Banerjee. He's dynamic, he's aggressive, he's straightforward, and he has a very clear vision and an agenda. And our single point agenda is to oust this anti-people BJP in 2024. Now, coming to the grand old party Congress. Now, Congress was the primary opposition to BJP, is the primary opposition to BJP. However, if you see Congress in the last 7 years, they are getting beaten by BJP. Whereas Trinamool Congress is beating BJP in the last 7 years in Bengal. So we are expanding. We are going to Tripura. We are going to Goa. See, in Goa, people of Goa voted for Congress, not BJP, but they couldn't keep their flock together. They resigned and joined BJP, and now BJP has formed the government. So they have failed Goa, they have failed the country. So what the people of this country is looking for, they're looking for a credible alternative. And the only credible alternative right now to take BJP head on is Mamata Banerjee. And why? There are many reasons, but I'll just point out two. One, she is the only politician who has successfully defeated the formidable duo of Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah in Bengal. And secondly, her credibility is her commitment. And you know why? Because in 2011, from giving back land to the farmers of Singur till 2021 with the students' credit card schemes, she has never failed on her promises of her political manifesto, which every politician fails. So she is a credible person that you need to, the people are looking for an alternative to BJP. And yeah. Congress, with all due respect, ma'am, if you give me 10 more seconds, please, yes. I'm sorry. And with all due respect, Tehseen is a good friend. We have been on multiple debates. Congress, see, with the imposition of the draconian farm laws, Punjab and Haryana was given on a silver platter to Congress. But they have made a mockery of themselves, and they have turned the grand old party into a comedy club. They are like the zamindars who don't have their zamins and living in a rented bungalow. They need to come on the streets. They need to show that they are on the ground, not just relevant on social media.
Tehseen, I'm smiling. Tehseen, just 1 minute. I'm smiling because this description of the Congress, that the grand old party has become a comedy club, has today not come from the BJP or the BJP supporters. It has come from an ally, a fellow traveler. And I'm reminded of Dr. Baru's old formulation that if the opposition needs to take on Modi and Shah, you actually need, the splintered Congress to reunite. And that's the point he made even in his opening remarks. Tehseen, can you just hold your fire for one moment, because neither Rahul nor Shubhrastha have had a chance, and I'll come to you right after that. Shubhrastha, I'm sure you're watching this with some amusement and some cynicism, because nothing is permanent in politics, including the fact that Captain Amarinder Singh could now well end up as an ally of the BJP in Punjab. I know I'm being premature here. He's only just announced his decision to exit the Congress, but it's my belief that he will manage to mediate some sort of agreement on the farm laws issue and then go into the polls as a possible partner to the BJP. How do you see what's happening?
Barkha, I wouldn't, want to make predictions as to what would Captain Amarinder Singh want to do. The other possibility also is the fact that he can split up the Congress in two, because there are many people within the Congress party, the then union ministers, who are not happy with the kind of leadership that the party has shown. Look, I agree 100% with what Sanjay Baruji said. It's important also as youngsters to revisit the history that, Mr. Baru laid out on your show. One takeaway from that entire, that historical premise is the fact that today, when India needs a credible opposition, and if I were to borrow a phrase from what Riju ji said, it has to stop looking at the zamindar to give, certain free arms or aid. It's important for regional parties to unite, and it's not important to, choose one among the best right now. I think it's important for the opposition to get its act together. And opposition does not necessarily mean the Congress party. I absolutely agree with Riju when he says, that in Bengal, Mamata Banerjee took on the took on the BJP. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that in Chhattisgarh, Rahul Gandhi was not the prime campaigner. In Rajasthan, it was Sachin Pilot and, the current chief minister who literally took the entire party forward. In Captain, the entire, political war was fought on Punjab. It was fought on Captain Amarinder Singh's name. It's important to recognize that Gandhi family today is passé. It's not the Gandhi family of Rajiv Gandhi and the Indira Gandhi and the Nehru Gandhi era. It's a family which has absolutely no regard for democracy. It's a family which has completely outsourced its politics to either poll campaigners or communist, strategists. And all of this does come into play when you look at the national narrative that the party is trying to build. It has a very confused house in order. There's a sitting union minister says something absolutely different than what the loyalists of the party say. So it's important, as Sanjay ji said, to perhaps for the Congress to get its old allies together. But I would say that rather than doing that, it's important for regional parties like the TMC, even for example, JDU in Bihar or RJD, etc., to show some spine. Come on, it's a democracy. Everybody should be allowed to play on a level playing field. There should be no, semblance of a picture of a hierarchy. Let everybody play on their own strengths and then let people of India decide.
But the fact, Rahul, is that you do now have Arvind Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee with very, very overt national ambitions. I think the Trinamool Congress's Dr. Riju Dutta could not have been more specific, calling the Congress both comical and feudal all at once. Of course, Congress would ask Rahul why the same barometer is not used to measure the temperature of the BJP when it changes chief ministers in Uttarakhand, 3 of them. Gujarat, done ruthlessly, and Karnataka. And I mean, of course, there are answers to that I could give, but I think I'd prefer to hear from you. Rahul, go ahead.
So those are the questions for TV debates. Yes. In politics, political parties and politicians are in the game to pursue power, right? So at the end of the day, BJP managed to change its chief minister in Karnataka or in Gujarat without making the mess of a situation. Think of what happened in Punjab. if you had three contenders, there were many names you took: Sidhu, Sunil Jakhar, and Randhawa, and Captain Amarinder Singh, and whatever 4-5 names we thought of. No one is happy after what has happened, right? Amarinder Singh is walking on a very different tone. Sidhu resigned from the PCC presidentship post. So I think the Congress took a right decision in perhaps changing the chief minister, but the way it was done, it basically created what everyone is saying, a mockery of the situation and the comedy club. Now, the second part is, and the discussion which we are having, and the title of your discussion, which is, of course, the authority of Gandhi family has diminished, right? Authority of any leader basically comes from three things. Either you are a charismatic personality and you can basically mobilize votes or keep your flocks together, or you can basically roll out the finances. So if Gandhi family is not being able to those two things, there are people in the party who thinks that their political prospects have become weak by being in the Congress, which also basically means that the idea of reuniting the Congress factions is a mirage. It cannot happen. Why would Mamata Banerjee want to join Congress party and listen the commands from New Delhi when she can run her own show in Bengal without any interference and can also expand her party in Tripura and Goa, right? So she is rather like any YSR Reddy or Pawar. The reason politicians walked out of the Congress because they think their chances of mobility within the Congress is limited. Going out, they can basically have much more freedom to do things that they want. Everybody wants to be the winner on the top, not second, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think you will see a unification of Congress party. In fact, what it is going to do with Trinamool rising and with Aam Aadmi party rising, it will create a bigger distance between BJP and the second player. So there will be no clear second. There will be multiple seconds, and that will basically create further dominance of BJP nationally.
I think that's very interesting. And before Tehseen, I just want Dr. Baru to respond to that because he had this whole framework, and I've heard it from him several times about sort of bringing, re-energizing, recalibrating, reframing the old Congress. Now, there's a reason that the Trinamool also calls itself the Congress. There's a reason that the Trinamool is actually taking away, Sanjay, the Congress's leaders into its fold, whether it's in Goa or let's say Sushmita Dev more recently, right? But do you agree with Rahul that the old, a reunited Congress is a myth? It's not going to happen. There are too many egos at play, and no one wants to take orders from Rahul and Priyanka.
No, first of all, yes, no one wants to take orders from anybody. In a democratic party, yes, decision making has to be based on consensus. But having said that, I don't rule out the possibility of some kind of reunification of the party, provided the leadership of the Congress understands the relevance of that and the necessity of that. Because otherwise you're going to have a divided opposition which will not be in a position to take on the challenge posed by Prime Minister Modi. Now, I have a very simple example to offer. You look at what happened between 2004 and 2014. When the BJP under the leadership of L.K. Advani lost in 2009, that party went through an internal discussion on how to approach the 2014 election. Now, Mr. Advani and many of his supporters in Delhi wanted him to continue to lead the party into the election in 2014. But there were others who felt that under his leadership, the party had lost in 2009, and therefore it needed a new leadership. And that is how Mr. Modi became the leader, and then they won that election. Now, this is true. One can give a lot of examples in many democracies around the world that if a leader fails in ensuring victory for his party, there is always a change of leadership. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that Mr. Rahul Gandhi got the opportunity to take on the BJP in 2019. Of course, he also got the opportunity in 2014. But in 2014, he could say that there was a legacy of 10 years of the UPA, which he could not do much about since he was not part of the UPA as a minister. But in 2019, he was the principal opposition leader. And therefore, I think the fact is that there are many people in the Congress who feel that we must go with a new leader. And that
So
is
you're
how
basically, so can I ask you, Sanjay, basically you're saying that this reunited Congress is possible only if the Gandhis step out of the way. With them there, I don't see how it happens.
Oh, step out is a word that can be interpreted in many ways. For example, Sonia Gandhi can continue to be the chairperson of UPA. I don't think Mamata Banerjee or Sharad Pawar or anyone will disagree with having Sonia Gandhi as the chairperson of UPA. That is what she was under UPA 1 and UPA 2. So in UPA 3, she could continue to be the chairperson. But Rahul becoming Prime Minister is the issue. That's the key issue. And that is where I think the challenge from Mamata Banerjee is that, look, just as Modi came to Delhi and replaced Advani and brought BJP to power, I have taken on the BJP and vanquished them in my state. I have the capacity to deliver victory at an all India level. That is her argument. And these are issues that the Congress people should discuss, provided they really want to defeat the BJP.
And so far we're seeing no signs of that kind of honest discussion. I'm seeing both Tehseen and Rahul's hands go up. Rahul, I know you said you want a very one-sentence introduction, and then Tehseen has the floor. Go ahead, Rahul.
Yes. So 30 seconds. I completely agree with Dr. Barusi. In the realm of possibilities, yes, such a unification can take place. But the probabilities of such a reunification is very, very low, because the structure of that unification would be very different, right? Like Gandhis will have to go, there has to be a new leader. So it's basically, then you are not thinking of an umbrella under Congress. Second point, any unification can happen only around three issues: leadership, ideology, or machine. Congress at the moment has neither of these three. It cannot offer finances to any other party. It does not have a vision for India. And being anti-RSS is not a big vision. So I think that's also a problem. And doesn't have a leadership, charismatic leadership.
That is very, very blunt and interesting. And Tehseen, I know there's a lot for you to take on, but also to Dr. Riju Dutta's point, and I raise him individually because he's an ally, he's on the same side as you, and he says the Congress is both comic and feudal today. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's ideologically on the same side. I don't see him as an ally politically. Ideologically, he's on the. Yes. I absolutely agree, and I can see that Mamata Banerjee. Again, I say I have a lot of respect for her. But since I'm one against so many voices, please give me some time. To Riju's point, since you raised him, to Doctor's point, the Congress won Madhya Pradesh, it won Chhattisgarh, it won Karnataka, it won Rajasthan, it almost won Gujarat. We know what happened in Madhya Pradesh. We know what happened in Goa. And again, let's go back to Goa, where the governor is on record saying that, look, I did not follow the constitutional method. I was advised by Arun Jaitley rather than being advised by the High Court judges, Supreme Court judges. And the Supreme Court, in the judgment, before whom I bow down with respect, said, oh, but you know what? Forget constitutionality. You all should have done dharna outside the governor's house. This is the Supreme Court. It should have settled this constitutionality. So there is a problem in our country where institutions are collapsing. So the Congress has one more state.
I have a question for you only. When your former chief minister in Goa, if we can play those pictures, when your former chief minister walks out and joins Mamata Banerjee, right, yes, in Goa.
We wish him the best.
That's nothing to do with the. Hang on. That's nothing to do with the BJP. Punjab is nothing to do with the BJP.
Absolutely, but the
Chhattisgarh is nothing to do with the BJP. Tripura is nothing to do with the BJP. I've given you 4 states that have nothing to. Rajasthan and your inability to resolve the leadership issue has nothing to do with the BJP. Now go ahead.
But you believe that, the issue is not being resolved because you want to see it from a prism that you want to see it. And with due respect, you're seeing it from a prism of, please allow me to finish, from a prism of bias. All along on this show, on your shows, I've been telling you how Punjab will be resolved. It's got resolved that way. But you still want to see Punjab as a loss for the Congress when I am sticking to it. Not just 80, the Congress is crossing 90. Now Dr. Baru lives in a utopian world, and I absolutely have respect for that utopian world. But the fact of the matter is, I agree with the political analyst Rahul when he says that, look, here is why should Mamata ji or why should Arvind Kejriwal or anybody else, Sharad Pawar, come under the Congress? I absolutely agree with that. But then you go back to an arrogant place of view where you say the Congress does not have a strategy to defeat the BJP. Why do you presume that the Congress does not have a strategy to defeat the BJP? Have you read our manifesto at 2019? Go by it. It had a complete economic plan. Had it been followed, India wouldn't have been in a minus 23.
How do you see the group of 23, which includes people like Shashi Tharoor and so on, very high-profile faces of the Congress they see?
And the Huddas, Milind, I say, very great, absolute dear friends of mine. But here is the fact, okay? Every single voter of the Congress is voting for the Gandhis. And amongst this G23, let me tell you one thing. A number of these people are not today in the G23. Their issues have been resolved. I can tell you this for a fact. Now, Shubhrastha kept mentioning an ex-union minister. The ex-union minister did not contest the Lok Sabha election. He ran away, admitted himself to a hospital.
I mean, your reference
and 1 second, please allow. I don't want to take names. Please allow me to finish. And when he was union minister, you know, Barkha, what the media was doing, and the union minister, not one. I don't think media should be dominated or this thing. Did not take up the issues. So let's understand that
yeah,
I'm there.
Tehseen, we've
So
lost
let's
you.
yeah. Am I available? Am I there now?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So this union minister ran away in 2014. And when he was union minister, I don't say media should be dominated, but he never reached out to the media. So let's understand, you know, I appreciate everybody's concern. I just have one line, please, because I'm spoken after a long time and everybody. I just have one line. Please understand, I agree with the concerns you have, but give the Congress some slack, cut some slack. They know what they're doing. It is a deadwood that needs to go.
Hang on, the Congress is not the Gandhis and the Gandhis is not the Congress, right?
Congress,
let's please separate these conversations. I'm not willing to accept that the Congress equals Gandhis and Gandhis equals Congress. We're here to discuss if the authority of the Gandhis is eroded.
No, on the contrary. And make a note of this: the authority and the respect for the Gandhis amongst people like you who vote for the Congress has gone up. Has gone up because.
Hang on.
Because.
Okay, hang on, Tehseen, because 4 words, and then Riju, and then Shubhrastha. You want to complete your sentence?
I think the respect has gone up because it is now amply clear that Rahul Gandhi has a vision for the Congress, and he will take the Congress into battle with people who can help him win the war, not with deadwoods. Not with deadwoods. Those who don't go to their constituency, those who never gone to their constituency, are today doing press conferences. Let's be clear on that.
Okay, Riju, this is exactly the dead wood that the Trinamool was trying to call out. But what's very interesting is that your party affiliated journal, very specifically describes Mamata Banerjee as the leader under which the opposition should actually come together. Are we very clearly seeing Ms. Banerjee now declare herself through her party to be the opposition's natural prime ministerial candidate?
Barkha ji, before going directly into your question, I want to say something to Tehseen. You know, I've heard Tehseen and I've heard the entire debate. The basic crux of the matter is, which you rightly pointed out, Barkha ji, Congress does not equal to Gandhi, Gandhi does not equal to Congress. And the regional parties who are ideologically similar to Congress will not do jihazuri, and that is the issue here. If they accept the fact that we will be in alignment with the single goal of ousting BJP from 2024, nobody has a problem with Congress. We do not have a problem with Congress. But why Congress leaders are joining us is because they align with our vision of going into 2024, defeating the BJP. It is to remove BJP from the center. And the way Indian National Congress is going, they are imploding. And the problem here is, I think, and we think this is the problem. One, they are too arrogant and they are very, very insulting and humiliating to their allies and their senior leaders. And secondly, they choose their seniority and dynasty over talent like Tehseen. You know, that people like Tehseen should have been promoted. What happened? These are the crux of the matters that need to be changed. They have ideological confusions. Their organization is in shambles. And again, I will say, we are not against the Congress. We all come from the same umbrella. But now, Mamata Banerjee is the face of the opposition. Why? Because the anti-Modi wave that is in the country, the anti-incumbency of Modi that is in the country, they are going for Mamata Banerjee from Kedarnath to Kanyakumari because they believe that this is a woman who can defeat her, not Congress.
Okay, this is not even now camouflaged in politeness anymore. I think it's quite out in the open. Tehseen, that was, I know, a kind of left-handed compliment to you. Just smile and take it. Isme kya argue karna hai? Shubhrastha, go ahead. Shubhrastha, go ahead.
Yes, Barkha, a couple of points. See, there's a lot of talk being done about ideology. Now, I don't think negation of anything that is there in the public domain and that is, sort of holding the power to the regime, that's That's not ideological positioning. That's called being in opposition, something that Congress hasn't learned. The arrogance that Riju is talking about is absolutely the problem. And this arrogance doesn't stem from, leaders like Shashi Tharoor or Manish Tiwari or Kapil Sibal. By the way, they're all union ministers and they all have issues with the Congress leadership, the current Congress leadership. And it's very convenient today, after 7 years of 7 years of being in opposition, to come on a debate show and say that well, this person didn't do its job well while they were in the ministry. Where were the loyalists then? Is it required that after every 7 years a nobody like me or a common man should actually rise up and ask a question, and the person, a spokesperson of the Congress would come on television and say that, well, this is what it is. They were not competent enough. Let's understand that even on the ideology question, Nehru, Indira, Rajiv, all of them had a working relationship with the RSS. Sometimes it was based on respect, sometimes it was absolutely on criticism, and sometimes on utility. To negate all of that and to try to create this very la-la land of what, the ideology of the Congress being anti-RSS, well, that's not an ideology. That comes from a place of arrogance, that comes from a place of absolute dismissal for what common sentiments are. Look, somebody, there was a talk about going back to the manifesto. Well, if your manifesto was so great, why were you trumped in 2019? Surely it was not about, election manipulation. Because if you say that, then how do you have Chhattisgarh with you right now, which was an absolute majority? So let's be mature and take up the issue at hand. The problem is, Priyanka and Rahul, let me spell it out. It's not about Sonia. It's not about the others in the Congress party. The two, people, absolute dynasts who have done nothing on the ground. They have nothing to prove on their CV. Barkha, if you and I were to walk into a media organization today, the first thing that we would be required to show is the kind of work that we have done in the spaces that we inhabit. If the question to Rahul Gandhi is he couldn't even hold on to a Amethi, and then they talk about UP leadership and so on and so forth. I think there's some serious reworking that needs to be done, and perhaps the family, the trio at the top, they don't want to do it. They want Priyanka and Gandhi to hold, to get the platter as it is, and that's not happening. This is a new India. This is an India with a lot of aspirations, and not everybody is willing to pawn off their aspiration for something unknown.
So let me take this to Dr. Baru, as we now, I think, need to start taking last comments. Dr. Baru, here's the thing. If by some miracle Tehseen is right, let's say he's right, and the Congress does win Punjab, Rahul Gandhi appropriates for himself another I told you so moment, and all of us who have criticized the way it's been handled will be told, see, you people sitting in Delhi don't understand ground politics, etc. That still does nothing to what structurally needs to change to go into 2024. What you basically have here is an opposition that is splintered. I don't even know, with respect to Riju, that a national opposition could be formed under Mamata Banerjee or an Arvind Kejriwal, because they would be described as sort of one state wonders. And then the Congress would hark back to the national sort of poll percentage it continues to enjoy. How do you see national opposition politics shaping, Sanjay?
Well, I mean, first of all, as I said at the very beginning, I don't know Punjab very well. The Congress may well win, but winning state elections is not enough to be able to put up an impressive show for 2024. Now, there are two ways in which you can go into 2024. One is to, in fact, come together before 2024. And the other is to come together after the 2024. After all, UPA came together after the elections over. Mm-hmm. UPA was not a pre-election alliance, it was a post-election alliance. Even NDA originally was a post-election alliance under Atalji. So the dynamics of when you come together, how you come together is all for those politicians to work out, and is their job. All I would say at this stage is that, as I said earlier, that the challenge for the opposition political parties is to in fact work together and not against each other. That is the contemporary challenge in India, because the fact is that the BJP has emerged, like the Congress in the 50s and 60s, as the dominant national political party. And the Congress on its own is not in a position to take on the BJP in the 2024 election. So therefore, if opposition political parties have a strategy of working together and not doing harakiri and this blame game that's been going on, then they have some hope. Otherwise, we'll see the BJP come back with enough numbers.
Rahul, you said the Congress, led by the Gandhis, has nothing to offer on the three boxes, in a sense that decide value. In which case, what happens to the opposition? You know, you're hearing a I've had Riju on this program many times, and he's never been this clear about how the Trinamool sees the Congress. So something is shifting, something has shifted, but that doesn't explain what happens to opposition politics, how it gets organized. Does it even get organized?
It won't. Basically, disarrayed opposition is a feature of a dominant party system. It's not a bug that can be easily removed. So when you had a Congress dominant system, the opposition at that time was divided. You had stalwarts like Lohia and other players, right? Socialist Party was there, and Charanjit was there, and so many players. But they couldn't come together. Even when they came together in the 71 election, they lost it. Right. So the first point is that opposition will remain disunited. There has to be a big external shock to bring opposition together. That shock could have been COVID second wave, as it was in 1977 when all opposition parties came together. So you need a big shock in the system. It could be COVID second wave, or it could be
You've had all the shocks, Rahul. You've had COVID second wave, you've had China, you have the Afghanistan situation that's going to create turmoil in our region, but the opposition is, as the Trinamool said, unable to galvanize itself at the grassroots.
So the second thing is that political parties, smaller regional political parties, will have to realize that their survival is at stake, right? Either external shock or internal survival instincts can only bring together. Otherwise, all the things are just empty talks.
I agree with that. And Dr. Riju, very brief 30 seconds, and Tehseen can then close the program for us. You have declared virtually the arrogance, the feudalism, and the disarray of the Congress, but you do not explain to us how the national opposition organizes under a party, hypothetically, which has only one state.
Yes, I want to start off with that, ma'am. Yes, we have one state now, but come 2024, we will have Tripura and Goa with us. And there will be others, so let's wait for those announcements. But, you know, as far as I have seen the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, people has voted for Modi ji first, then BJP. So on the other end, you need a face. Now, like you pointed out, after the Amit fiasco, people are not going to vote for the face of Rahul Gandhi, whichever party he represents. So you need a strong face to stand in front of Narendra Modi and say that I will beat you and I will do it for the people of this country. Who's that strong face? Tell me another politician in this country with the stature and persona other than Mamata Banerjee to stand in front of Narendra Modi come 2024. This country needs a face. This country needs an alternative.
What do you think of Arvind Kejriwal's expansionist plans?
No, all the best to him. He's a very dear friend of our party. All the best to him. But again, I will come back to that. When you go to the polling station, Barkha ji, either you have to vote for Narendra Modi, or else it should not be a question mark. It should be Mamata Banerjee or anybody else. You ask yourself, who will you vote for other than Mamata Banerjee if you're not voting for Narendra Modi?
Okay, Tehseen, very quickly, my last question to you is this. What do you think of these former union ministers who are banding together? You used to say that outsiders are promoted and rewarded in this party, not the old-timers. One old-timer has gone, several others have gone to the Trinamool, and now you have these second of old-timers who are really openly, publicly agitated.
No, so there are two quick issues that I want to put forward. Number one is, at the end of the day, politics is about political power and winning elections. I am putting it on record, not just
You agree?
Punjab.
I have to ask you something, because you've been against leftism, left-leaning impulses of the Congress. We didn't discuss it. Do you agree with the induction? This was also a week we saw the induction of Kanhaiya Kumar. What did you think of that?
Good. He'll campaign in Bihar. It'll be good for him. But look, there's a larger thing that I want to.
You didn't answer the question. Answer it properly.
This is a question of ideology.
So for me personally, I'm against I'm against the party going towards the left. That, to me, that's a personal opinion. And yeah, I wish Kanhaiya the best. He's a friend. I wish him the best, and I hope he can strengthen the party in Bihar. But you see, there is a larger. I want to talk about a larger macro issue than micro issues like Kanhaiya or Jignesh. The macro issue is this: that the party is winning Punjab, it is winning Uttarakhand, and it is going to win Gujarat. There is something that's happened in Gujarat that most of you guys have not realized. It's going to win Gujarat. And once that happens, there will be a political momentum towards the party. I wish my friend Riju all the best. I wish Team Trinamool and I wish Arvind Kejriwal all the best. The more opposition there is, that's good. I am not in opposition because I'm anti-RSS. I am in opposition because I'm pro-India, pro-constitution, something RSS was against. That is my stand. And the people of India will decide in 2020.
That is another debate, because when I think of ideology, I also think of a Shiv Sena government with the Congress in Maharashtra.
And they had to agree to secularism. They had to sign a common minimum program, and they had to walk on the path that I have chosen. So you come with me, you come on my path. I don't go on your path.
I think Shubhrastha, a sentence and I have to go, Shubhrastha.
This is exactly the arrogance that Rijuji talked about. To say that Kanhaiya and Jignesh are micro issues, they're not micro issues. There's a conversation on ideology, and there are two people who have been, in the public domain, there has been a perception created that they have been incarcerated by the media, the dominant political party in power, and precisely this is the plank that the Congress is harping on. You can't relegate these issues to micro issues. People of this country are not fools to see what exactly is happening in the Congress right now. So good luck to the Congress. In fact, good luck to the
Is it Shubhrashta's argument that the Congress is going to win the election on the basis of Kanhaiya and Jignesh? That's not the argument, no? So that's not. You're making a mountain of a molehill.
Okay.
The debate was not on Kanhaiya. I wouldn't have come on a debate on Kanhaiya. They are micro issues. It's macro issues. Congress is not debating on Kanhaiya's back.
Please don't make this. Please don't.
I respect your opinion. I absolutely respect your opinion, but you're wrong.
Okay. I'm going to end. I'm going to end.
You're wrong. That's it.
He's
wrong. Period.
Guys, this is not a television show. This is not a television debate. We're here to discuss.
Tehseen should watch himself, and he has spoken.
Okay, Tehseen and
should learn some manners.
She should not misquote me, na?
Okay, come on, Yan. Come on.
I'm quoting you. I'm just saying that you talked on ideology and you made a flawed argument. Why is it so difficult for you?
Barkha ji, breaking news has come. Can I mention it, please?
Yes.
Please mention. I'll mute myself.
Yes.
The Shamsherganj Indian National Congress candidate who's contesting the election says, I do not belong to any party. I might join TMC later on. Let's summarize this debate.
All right, we leave it there. This kind of sort of voluble rhetoric on shows like this, we try and go into the issues of ideas. Tehseen, whether you want to discuss individuals or not, how the Congress defines itself ideologically today is a big question mark, and we will have a separate program on that. We leave it there. Thanking Dr. Baru, Dr. Dutta, Rahul Verma, Shubhrastha, and Tehseen, and to our audience, watch this space. More tomorrow, same time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.